Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Electrical Apprentice webinar. My name is Alex, and I'll host this session today. We have Legrand presenting this session today. So beside me is Matt and Chris. Hello, Matt. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi, Chris. Welcome as well.
Hi, Alex. Yes, thank you, and welcome, everyone.
Good. So, guys, from the audience, the people who is already in the room, if you can confirm you can hear as well, please, in the chat box on your right-hand side. We appreciate, and we can start the session in 3 minutes without any connection problems or... Yes, the sound is good. Thank you, Darren. If someone else can confirm as well, we appreciate.
Yeah, Lee can hear us as well. That's good.
Yeah, good. So it's good, nice and clear. So let me add the first slide of presentation. Then we have like 2 minutes to start. And always remembering, guys, if you want to revisit the session afterwards, you can access and the material as well. It will be on Voltimo Academy. Until the end of the day, it will be uploaded over there. So if you want to revisit for any detail, you can access the Voltimo Academy. Let me write down the chat box. It's voltimo.co.uk/academy. Okay, so you can revisit the session and watch it again, and with the whole material from Matt and Chris as well. So Matt and Chris, let's wait a couple of minutes more, and we can start at 1 p.m. Okay?
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, good. The video will be, the recorded video will also be on the Electrical Apprentice channel in YouTube. So it's another place you can access the presentation afterwards. Let me get the address, and I can get the link as well. One minute more, and we start the session. Okay, guys, 1 p.m. Matt and Chris, please, we can start. It's over to you, please.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. Hi, everybody. Thank you ever so much for taking some time out of your days today. It's really, really appreciated. So there's two of us today. I think you can see our names in front of you on the on the screen, on the presentation slide, and also in the camera view as well. So I'm Matt. My colleague is Chris. And we work for a company called Legrand Electric Limited. So I'll just tell you who we are in 30 seconds or less. Then we can move straight on into the material itself. So we're a manufacturing company. We're actually a French manufacturing company. We manufacture products for the digital and electrical infrastructure space. So from great big transformers at one end of the market, all the way through to the types of things we're going to be talking about today, which is smart connected products for the connected home. We're structured into a number of different business units in the UK, and the one that we're actually focused on today is this particular one, the user interface business unit, where all of the smart home element of our product offer sits. So after that really, really quick introduction to Legrand, this is the agenda that we want to talk about today. So the first question on there is, well, why a smart home? Well, as we know, I think the world is changing at huge rates now. We only have to consider what's been going on, unfortunately, over the last 14 months to see how we're embracing digital themes and digitization. So it's not just in the workspace anymore, but these themes are really through all elements of our lives right now. And we've been using Teams and Skype and things like that to keep in contact with maybe live music streaming or exercise classes, or just keeping in touch with a friend or family members on the other side of the country or even the globe these days. We're super, super connected. And when we look at how things that we're very familiar with have changed as well. So reading the newspaper, we don't read newspapers anymore. We pick it up on a computer, a tablet, a smartwatch. We just ask for the news. You know, the way that we're changing our habits these days is really, really changing our lives in huge ways. You know, the way that we pick up our telephone calls now with those wonderful folding phones in the top right hand side of the screen that you can see now as well. You know, the way that this has all changed, and even the way that we're also interacting with our transport systems as well, with our smart cars. And you know, soon we're going to be talking about self-driving and all of the things around that as well. But the way we're connecting with our cars and all of those things that we just looked at on the past few slides are really driving fundamental changes in the way that we live our lives. So why don't we do it in our homes as well to that degree? And if you look at the slide now, I think, Chris, you'd agree that's kind of what we tend to think of as a smart home right now, isn't it?
It is. You know, we're looking at a number of sort of, we call it the Internet of Things, don't we? Devices that are connected to our Wi-Fi in some way, that perhaps provide an individual sort of smart application, whether it be the refrigerator or an individual light bulb or a kettle, as you've got an example there. But they remain individual items connected with their own app.
Yeah, and you can see there's some advantages and some disadvantages that we've put out on the slide there. You know, multiple functions, multiple apps. On my phone here, I'll show you if you can see that. I've got seven different smart home apps on my phone. So, you know, I've done this as well. But what we don't have here is there's no future proofing in this kind of scenario that you can see on the screen there in front of you. And what it also doesn't do, it doesn't give you a true system in the best sense of the word. So while this could be considered a smart approach, it's not a connected approach. So if we look at the theme of lighting and automation, what you've got in front of you there is a really simple graphic of a traditional home setup in terms of the wiring. We've got a consumer unit and we wire out from that, you know, lighting or blinds or to fans as well. And that's fine. And what can we do with it? Not a lot. We can turn a light on and off. We might have some two-way switching. We'll have a bit of dimming if we're lucky. We might wire in some hardwired blinds, but we don't tend to do that in this country very often because it's quite difficult with this type of system. And we can turn on some extractor fans. That is about all we can do with a traditional home. But if we consider a smart approach with a basic smart home switch, as the example on the slide there, look at the things that you can do. So all of those bullet points on the left-hand side and more besides, we can do with a basic smart home switch. So we're controlling the lights and changing dimming levels, roller blinds and curtains, fans, controlling different areas of a premises, but also voice control and app control as well. So we can bring the intelligence that we were talking about a few minutes ago in that digitization space truly into the home like never before.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, on that, it's important to have those areas of control covered off. So where we were looking at the IoT-based devices, they're pretty much independently controlled through an app. Whereas, as you were illustrating there, the ability to go to a traditional point on the wall to control a particular lighting circuit or voice control or app, that's the important thing and what we're trying to get across there.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the really clever things that we can do, we'll just touch on now with some simple graphics that you can see there on the screen. So, We can control whole groups of circuits with a single switch. We can add into that blinds as well. So all of that can be controlled just with a single switch somewhere, or just picking up your mobile phone and accessing the app, or voice control as well. We can do what we call a I can't even say it, whole home control. So every single circuit is controlled with just one switch. So that could be positioned by the front door perhaps, and when you leave the house, just press that one button and everything turns off. Because we're really, really good at leaving lights on, aren't we? Really, really good at leaving lights on. But if you think about the agenda from the UK government in terms of energy efficiency for our homes in the future, having a smart approach to controlling how we're operating all of our systems in a home is really, really important. And I think, from your perspective as apprentices, taking on board the opportunities that are in the marketplace to exploit, if you like, the smart home space is really, really key. But we can actually make all of these things we're currently talking about even smarter. So it becomes almost limitless on what we can do. So we're talking here about adding scenario control to the operation of that switch. So what you can see in front of you in the middle of the screen is a scenario control switch. So you've got some operations from each quadrant of that switch. You can do different things which are pre-programmed to allow the homeowner to configure their living space to their desired settings, be it music, be it lights, be it blinds, be it heating. So we can have scenario controls covering different levels of lighting aspects, or operating with heating and lighting together, or audio. So, Chris, can you offer any more just sort of basic examples of that?
Of course, yeah. Where I think this is important, if you look at trends in lifestyles now are around open plan living. So in terms of designs of properties, you're going to have spaces that might have 4, 5, 6, 7 circuits of light in an open plan environment. So it's much less conducive to a switch on off for one circuit. What a customer wants to be able to do in their home for ease of use is push one button that says entertain, and it controls 7 lighting circuits at one push of a button. So it's convenience that we're building in here that I think is the key thing.
Thanks, Chris. And I think I've got some just little examples here. So yeah, this could be a scenario control, and this one we've termed as a good night example. So with a good night example, with a single press of a button, blinds come down, all the lights would go off, maybe except for bedroom lights, which would be set to a dimming level at a preset level. So if you wanted those to come down to 30%, 40%, 50%, whatever it might be, but it would also change your comfort level in terms of your heating as well. So all of that would be integrated into the single press of a button. As you can see there, the lights have gone off. And you can reverse that with a morning example. So in the morning when you wake up, you could have blinds come up, the bedroom lights come on, the ensuite lights come on, the audio comes on to your favorite music station, your heating changes, and so on, as you can see in the pictorial examples on the slide there. So it really, really does become limitless on the choices that we can have, or the choices if you move into this space of being able to offer to your clients, moving forwards into the future. And there's many, many different ways that we can do this now. And this is an example here that's called bus control wiring. So on the left-hand side, you can see a 2-wire bus cable. And that's all we need really to control all of the things that we put into the home. So on the right-hand side, you've got a smart home control enclosure that you can see. And out from that, we take our 2-wire bus cable. And each one of these, Chris, is wired straight back, isn't it, from the device itself back into the control enclosure?
Yeah, so all of your keypads are linked back to the enclosure, and all of the devices in the enclosure that would be your actuators or your dimmers are all connected to the same communication bus. So any keypad in any room can control any circuit inside or outside the house, provided it's wired back to a connected enclosure point.
So you'd still have your consumer unit and your wiring for your house, but you're adding this control enclosure here, as you can see, in coming out in this fashion that Chris has explained, just with this two-wire bus cable.
Matt, is, sorry to interrupt, the nice thing about that is that if you're wiring a bus, it's a lot easier to wire keypads or switch points to a bus that's going out in a serial loop, basically, around the house, than it is to run switch lives. So it can actually be quicker to wire in this way.
Yeah, so a two-wire bus system is very, very simple to install, isn't it?
It is.
But we've also got, excuse me, we also have other ways of doing things as well. So here we've got radio control wiring as well. So here we've got your consumer unit. So we haven't got our smart home enclosure on this one. We've got the consumer unit. And what we can do here is from the consumer unit. So this is using our standard wiring that we find in a traditional house. And this is a brand new offering, actually. So this is a Legrand offering that we only launched. Chris, remind me.
April.
Yeah,
so end of March, early April.
Yeah, of this year. So this is a new development out in the marketplace now. So it brings you virtually all of that functionality that we've talked about over the smart home into the space where we can just add it almost seamlessly to a traditional wiring setup. And what you've got here is just explain it a little bit more on the following slide. So if you can see in the next to the consumer unit, we have a little device, and you can see that device is talking to other devices in the room. So in the living room up in the corner, we have another radio device. So in terms of the control, can you just briefly explain the Zigbee mesh, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. So what we have is where you'd have your traditional wired switch points, we would have one of our wired but Zigbee enabled switch points that create this very strong mesh network. So they all talk to each other, but they also enable us to add wireless keypad or switch points to that network. So in that way, we could, for example, the best example I can give is probably perhaps a master bedroom in a house where you have a wired switch controlling the circuit from by the door, the door that you enter the room through, and you might want to add wireless switches either side of the bed, which you can do without there being any wiring there because they just talk to each other over this. Zigbee is a radio frequency. It's a very secure, robust Zigbee 3, we call it, network whereby these devices all talk to each other.
Wonderful. And that connection, that association to make those devices work is so simple. I'll show you a picture in a couple of slides that it really, really is a clever technology that's been used in all of this to make it work. So, excuse me, here we've got just some examples of the types of things that we've got. And we don't even need to have the setup done with an app. So in some kinds of systems that you have these days, you need to be able to program everything up and associate everything in an app or on a computer. This system is so simple that we don't have to do that. So you can kind of get the sense of it from the words on the screen under the pictures, which I'm not reading out to you. I'm just giving you an opportunity to read while I talk over the top of it. But if I show you the next slide, the association of those wireless devices is still without an app. So all you do to pair those devices is we tap the one device to the master control, if you like. 3 taps, is it, Chris? I think, and it's associated.
Yeah.
So it really is as simple as that.
And if you had a scene controller that was controlling, let's say, 4 or 5 separate circuits, then you just tap the 4 or 5 devices that are controlling those circuits from a wired perspective. So the dimming functionality, for example, can sit behind that keypad. the wired keypad, and then the wireless keypad can talk to it. So it's infinitely expandable, very easy to associate those wireless keypads with the wired ones.
Yeah, and hopefully what you've noticed as well is we've also got single and twin sockets as well. So instead of having, maybe an adapter plug, if you like, that you could buy from a well-known online store for £10, £15, £20 each, something like that, we've got the single and twin sockets, so you can incorporate it into a complete system approach. So you're finding now with this type of solution that you are building a true connected approach through the entire installation that you might be working on, and having that as an offer to offer out to your customers, your clients, over and above your standard electrical wiring that sits within a house is really a key element moving forwards into the future.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say, Matt, that we do have, as you're showing here, an app that will also control all these devices. So in the same way as we were talking earlier, not only have you got the switch points on the wall, wired or wireless, but you've also got the app, and you've also got the voice control integration. And just to mention on the 13 amp switch there, that you get push notifications to your mobile device if you've left something on. So it might be that you've left an iron on somewhere, and it will tell you that there's current being drawn, and you can turn it off remotely. So all of a sudden, that the property that you've wired becomes very clever in helping the customer live their lifestyle.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. And as you mentioned, there is an example of the app on the mobile phone there, as you say. And we have a little program within Legrand called Works with Legrand. You might have guessed from seeing it on the left-hand side of the slide right there. But we're integrated with all of the popular and well-known voice assistants. So, there's 3 on the screen there. All of our smart home equipment works seamlessly with those voice control devices. But we can even make it smarter still. From all of those things that we've just kind of talked about for 15 minutes or so, we can even make these things cleverer than we've just been explaining by adding variables to our scenes. So variables would be conditions, if you like. So that might be an example. Is it night? Is it day? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it foggy? So those kinds of variables can all be built into this system as well.
A couple of examples there, Matt, that I think illustrate that quite well is if you've got some outside lights, you might have a variable 1, might be a timer. So we can build in dawn and dusk, or you could build in dusk and a time. So they come on at dusk and they go off at 10:30 at night. But for example, if it were a particularly foggy day, you might want your outside drive lights to come on so that you can see your way in the fog. So you could have a weather condition on it as well. Or it could be a switch by the bed that turns the lights on, and during the daytime hours, it would come on at, let's say, 80% illumination. But at night, when you wake up, you don't want 80% illumination. If you need to go to the bathroom, you're happy at 10 or 15%. And the same button can actually know whether it's nighttime and what level to switch the lights on. So very much in theme what you're saying there. How can we make our scenes smarter? There's sort of perhaps a couple of illustrations for you.
Yeah, great illustrations, Chris. And I think I might have 1 or 2 slides here that just show those in some picture format. Yeah, so we've got geolocation here, for example. So linked to a coming home scene where once it's detected, the system's detected that we're approaching our home, and we can set that distance. It could be 10 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet, whatever it might be. We can turn the heating up, we can turn lighting on and so forth. So we're not actually activating anything at all. We're using those presets that we've just looked at and that Chris has just explained to actually activate all of our componentry for us, our switches and so on, our lighting and our heating. And Yeah, there's an example there of the weather conditions. So if it's equal to foggy, we might have the lights come on or the lights go off to light our driveway to our house. And Chris also mentioned earlier push notifications as well. I think we can configure these notifications almost for any scenario now. So this particular scenario is that somebody's lurking around outside the house. But the one that Chris explained was we've left an iron on, and we'll get a push notification sent to our mobile phone so that we have that ability to monitor all of the functions of our home. And we can also begin to add things like touchscreen controls as well. So all of that functionality that we've just been talking about that we have on the app or with the device itself or voice control, we can use the touchscreen control as well. So these are really, really, really smart looking devices. And quite often you might find one of those in the main heart of the house, which might be the kitchen or the living room. It would sit on the wall, but you can control everything that you want. But you can also have a look and use diagnostics that are built into these as well, can't you, Chris, to monitor the home from there?
Yeah, I think the important thing here is it's a dashboard. And I think where things have moved on now with the use of remote devices like phones or iPads and so on, is that this needs to be a go-to position on the wall that's quick and easy to see. And as you can see on the illustration there, the house, you can see what the cooling, what's going on with the cooling, the lights, the blinds, the audio on very quick access buttons there in the middle. So it's not something you lurk around. You just go there, you make a change, and you walk away.
And of course, as we've said before, we do have that ability to have your app control, your voice control, but also the actual touchability of, if you like, of actually interacting with those scene controls, with those switches, with those touch screens as well. So any kind of scenario that we're looking for, we can now cover in this space. So we kind of elevate away from a smart home, as we typically consider it to be now, to more a connected home. I do believe there is a difference between those two things. So, we'll just have a look at what we can actually control, because you might say, I bet you can only control LEDs with that. So it's actually a limited system, isn't it? Well, actually, if we want to have a look at what we can control, we can pretty much control anything. In terms of lamps and motors, we got halogens, discharges, fluorescents, LEDs, everything. But also motors as well. So left-right control motors for curtains, up-down motors for blinds, and also the fan control as well. So we can cover all kinds of scenarios. And we can also do cooling equipment as well. So it doesn't just have to be, lighting and so on here. We can control heating and cooling systems as well. So talking about those a little bit more here, and with a traditional heating system, this is kind of the way it works. We've got, a boiler and a pump. We've got some radiators. We've got a thermostat, and it's not very efficient. It doesn't really do much for us. We're really, really good in this world of two things: leaving lights on and heating empty spaces. And what we're trying to do is bring control to that area so that we can make the way that we're living our lives a lot simpler. So in a smart home heating system now, we can control individual spaces. If we look at a graphic as we've shown on the screen here, we've got individual radiator thermostats on each of the rooms within that building. So we've got total control integrated with all of the other things that we've just been talking about. And it brings you pretty much every type of scenario that you might find in your house can be controlled, but controlled effectively. So we're actually having the ability now to make our homes more energy efficient as well, using this kind of approach. And there's a few things on the smart heating systems here. Chris, any comments on the smart heating equipment here that you'd have?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Firstly, the obvious ones are the ability again to control this through an app when you're external to the home. So you can bring the heating on if you're on your way back from the airport and you want to warm the house after you've been away for a period of time. But also, as you said, they've got smart algorithms in these, so they much more closely monitor the room temperatures and have got more control over those room temperatures, so that, again, not only you're not heating spaces that you're not using, but the spaces you are using are kept at a more constant level. So there's a number of things in here that make them conducive to be more energy efficient, as well as adding that ease of use and convenience, like I said, about the external control or the voice control, so that you can easily change temperatures in different rooms rather than have to go up to a thermostat and change it yourself. Plus, they've got obviously 24/7 programs built into these, so that you can make very concise schedules for how you're going to be wanting the property to be heated. So there's a number of benefits, really, Matt, for having these smarter thermostatic controls in the house.
Yeah, and with these as well, we can wire contacts into our windows and doors as well, can't we? So that if we open a window and the heating's on, it'll detect that window's been opened, and it'll adjust or shut off the heating accordingly.
Yeah. And what we're showing as well, I mean, there are wireless and wired options available. So you can either have a conventionally wired switch thermostat, or it could be a wireless one going back to a central controller. So options for both there, depending on how you want to wire the property, or if indeed the property is already wired. Yeah.
And again, what can we control? Pretty much everything that you can think of, so there's nothing really that gets left out. We can offer this type of intelligence, this type of connectivity into all manner of projects that we might come across now. So having these as options to tag on is a good thing. So we've also got audio as well, which is probably the thing that most people are familiar with above and beyond everything else, because we've been streaming audio for such a long time these days, haven't we? But all of this can be integrated as well and controlled via scenes, as we explained before. So any comments, Chris, on audio that you'd like to offer?
No, as I said, I think people are familiar now with streaming content for listening to audio. What we're looking at here is the ability to distribute this around the home. We're mentioning Nuvo here. It equally could be, for example, a Sonos music system that people might have heard of. And what we're able to do there is just incorporate that into ease of use. So if you're exiting a room, wouldn't it be nice to turn the audio off with the lights rather than have to go to the app and turn it off? So there's things you can bring in, again, coming back to that point of convenience. It just makes the whole thing more convenient to use.
Thank you, Chris. So we come to almost the end, as you can see. So, we've looked at lighting, we've looked at temperature, energy, audio, but above all, it's having the ability to connect all of those things together into a true system, not those individual pieces that you can buy from your well-known web store or your well-known high street store these days. Because we can do that, but it doesn't give you that proper smart connected home. So in terms of the audience, Chris, that we've got today with apprentices here, which is absolutely wonderful, what type of opportunities would you think that they should be thinking about as they move forwards with their learning?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing here is to think about the infrastructure that's going into a home. So if there's wiring to be done in the home, think about it in terms of some of the benefits that can be added for the homeowner by offering these forms of control. And I think what I really like, Matt, is your slide showing the evolution of the car. And you think about how far we've gone with the way we interact with our cars. And yet, if you look at the homes, people are still using a conventional light switch for one circuit, and you often go into kitchens and see banks of dimmers on, and then they've got to adjust each one separately. That's not really the sort of convenience that we're looking for, or indeed the control over our energy usage that we're looking for. So I think it's an opportunity to give people the infrastructure in the properties that they really need, not would like to have, almost need for today's living.
Yeah, and we actually offer installer training, don't we?
We do, yeah. I mean, I think we've had 30 minutes, and I think you and I are slightly worried about the amount we had to get through in 30 minutes. But we've only been able to scrape the surface, really. So I think, the training programs that we offer do a much deeper dive into some of these areas and explain it in a bit more detail. This is really just to give a flavour for what we're doing as a business and what we see as important in this particular category.
Yeah, absolutely. And nothing is free in this world. Our installer training courses are.
Correct. Yeah. Including lunch.
Yeah, including lunch as well.
When we're able to have them face to face. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that just brings us right to the end, actually, to the Q&A. So thank you for listening to Chris and I for the last half hour. We'd be really interested to see if there are any questions that have come through. If anybody thinks of any now while it's going through your head, please type them into the box and we'll have a look and see what they are.
Perfect, Matt. Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much for your presentation. We have a question here and probably more questions in a couple of minutes. But before we start the Q&A, let me add a survey into the big screen, and I ask for the audience if you can complete. We appreciate, please. Only a couple of questions, 2 questions, really fast, but it helps us a lot with our development for the next sessions and next webinars as well, and it's a report for the presenters as well. And Matt and Chris, let's wait just 1-2 minutes, and we can start with the questions. Okay. And guys, feel free to ask questions and comments as well in the chat box. And right after the survey, we can start and reply one by one with Matt and Chris, please.
Yeah, of course, we're happy to try and answer any questions that might come in. Chris,
Yeah,
do you ever get a typical question that you get asked all the time?
No, I don't think so. I think they tend to be quite varied, actually. I think there's an interesting one I can see come in there about security, and I think that probably does come up every time. But it also is a question that contractors are often asked by customers, because I think there is a sort of genuine fear of security when you're looking at all of this digital technology, and it's a really good question because there is a big difference between some of this technology and the way it's used. And ours, we use a cloud server that Legrand manage called Elliot, and that is a secure repository for customer information, and it's where you create an account so that the communication between your mobile device and your home is through our cloud. And Legrand, you introduced us earlier, but it's a $6.5 billion turnover company globally. It takes its corporate social responsibility it's very important to the business, and has complete programs to ensure that those servers are secure. And so if you're then looking at voice control, you'd equally have your, let's say, Amazon account. And for voice control, it's nothing happening locally. It's you're talking to your Amazon device, it goes to the cloud and talks to our server on the cloud and then back to the home. So it's a very secure environment. You're not looking at any local opportunities for people to hack that Wi-Fi and get control of your house, because it's all via secure accounts. I don't know whether that makes sense, Matt, or would you want to add anything to that?
No, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. It'd be interesting to have a look at the question list in a minute.
Yeah, let's start it. And I'd like to thank you for the people who completed the survey as well. So let's start with the questions. Matt and Chris, can you read the questions as well and then answer to it?
Yeah, of course. So Darren, funnily enough, I have seen your second post that you put in there, which was ignore the long question, but let's look at it anyway, because we can expand on that. So excuse the long question. Do you offer training? Unless we as potential installers were to splash out on sizable chunks of cash on a system to install for ourselves and then learn how to use it, there's a high chance that the first time you ever install one will be for a paying customer. They'll also be expecting some guidance from the installer on how to use it, and there'll no doubt be some fault finding needed too. I wouldn't feel particularly comfortable in that situation. So how can installers get sufficiently acquainted? It's a great question, Darren. Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we all of the products that we manufacture in this space are designed with ease of use, ease of installation, and simplicity in mind. So we try not to make them complicated at all. Having said that, we do offer free installer training. Over the last 14 months or so, because of the COVID pandemic, that training has been conducted online. But the best type of training that we offer is at our headquarters in Birmingham, up in the West Midlands. And we offer a full day's installer training course on these systems. So you get theory, but the training room that we have is fully kitted out with all of the equipment as well. So you get your theory part to understand kind of how it works, and then you go into the hands-on part where you can put that learning into practice. But we also support when you go out and start installing projects. We have support from our teams who can help with the issues that you might find. We have a technical support helpline. It's just a telephone call away, where we can offer that kind of support. Chris, anything else that you can add?
I think one thing I would add, Matt, is that coming across a customer you're seeing, if you're involved in this for the first time, undoubtedly you need help. And what we tend to find is that all we really need from you guys is how many lighting circuits, how many need to be dimmed, how many keypads, how many heating zones, etc. And we can do a spec for you. As you mentioned, our technical team can come up with a spec so that you can actually engage with the customer from a fairly credible point of view as to what they need as a system. And then we can follow that up with any training requirements you've got or any other information. So we can help you with that first interaction as well, if there's a custom requirement.
Yeah, I think it's with everything in this life, isn't it? The more you do these things, the more proficient you become, and then suddenly it's just second nature and it's part of what you do.
Yeah.
Perfect, guys. We have a second question from Darren as well.
Okay, so Darren's asking, what measures are in place to ensure that no hackers can take control of a smart system?
Well, I think I answered that one hopefully in how I explained the security of the system. So in order to hack this, they would need to know all of your account details. So it's no real different from your online banking in that respect. It's completely secure. There are no sort of local communication of data between routers and devices that could be hacked into. It's all via the cloud.
Yeah, and there's a second part of this as well that's kind of in the background, and we don't think about it very often. Certainly installers of the products wouldn't think about it very often, but obviously as a leading manufacturer, all of the products that we manufacture are manufactured to British, European or international standards that govern the way that we should be constructing all of our products. And when you've got products that have some intelligence within them, like these kinds of systems, there are international standards that manufacturers like us have to adhere to in the way that we construct the intelligence within those systems as well. And I know cybersecurity standards are being written all the time by the industry. So we're always aspiring to those standards to make sure that all of these new things that are making things safer and making them almost hack-proof, if you like, are built into our systems as well. So maybe that's just a little bit of something that you probably don't look at very often, but it's a bit of reassurance maybe that we could give you.
Good. Let's go to the next one. One more from Darren. Darren, thank you very much for your questions.
Oh, yes. For wireless, have you experienced any communication problems based on distance and solid brick walls? Chris?
Yes, yeah, is the simple answer that solid brick walls can cause problems. With the Zigbee mesh network that we were talking earlier, this form of communication, it uses very low power, but actually creates strength through the number of devices you have on it, as we're explaining. So where you've got a number of Zigbee devices, the more of them you have, the stronger the mesh network. But clearly there is some science in this, and if you put one device on the ground floor and one on the top floor and there's 3 walls in between it, you could have problems. But the idea is there's enough devices around the home that they create that strong network. And again, we can assist with any queries on that if there were particular concerns on a project, with some basic information on distances, etc. But there's no exact answer. But yes, it's an area you need to be, you need to look at.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, let's go. Next one from Russell.
Is there a way to build a secure home server not connected to the net?
Yes, there is. I mean, our home server doesn't have to be connected to the net to provide a high degree of the functionality we were looking at earlier. So controlling your lights and heating locally from switch points, or even an app in the home, would be on a local network. But if you are wanting to get that remote operation or some of that smart functionality, then a lot of that is provided by network connection. So it's something where, as I said earlier, that the security over that is heavily is designed into the system. So it's very, very difficult for it to be hacked into. From a network perspective. I don't know whether that answers that question, does it?
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. If that's not clear for you, Russell, then just drop something into the box if we've misinterpreted. Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes,
perfect.
Yeah, I just replied. Okay, let's go. We have a couple of questions from Blake as well.
Can this be linked to a Ring system for external door CCTV?
Okay, so our system can't be linked to Ring because Ring is a competitive solution, but we, with our Netatmo product, which has cameras and doorbells and so on, then the answer is yes. But that's largely because the type of product we're looking at, to a certain extent, for simplicity reasons, has to be canned. So what I mean by that is that it sees a number of third-party devices, but they're limited. It's not an unlimited number of third-party interactions, because otherwise you'd be increasing the amount of programming needed. So in the environment we offer, there's devices that can be linked in and some that can't. Ring as a competitive system isn't included in that.
Good. Next one from Lake.
If retrofitting to existing lighting switches, do we need a neutral at the box?
The answer to that is yes and no. So we cover both options. So we have wired switches that do require a neutral. If there isn't a neutral there, we have a a little device called a bleeder that goes up by the light fitting that allows you to use a system where there's no neutral at the light fitting. So both can be covered.
Good. One more question from Paul.
Okay, so Paul's asking, does a Zigbee have an IP address for local Wi-Fi or SIM card setup for communication?
No. As far as I'm aware with Zigbee, the Zigbee mesh network is created by itself, essentially, so that it creates the contact to your home router, and then it communicates or links all of the devices on that Zigbee mesh network. So there's certainly no SIM card for setup. And whilst I'm not 100% sure, I'm pretty sure it doesn't it doesn't have an individual IP address. But that's something, Matt, I think to get a proper answer on that, we'd need to take that away to our technical guys and just ask them about the IP address. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thanks, Paul, for your question, and a couple of questions more from Blake.
Okay, so this one's around hacking and interference again. So with the wireless system this time, with the wireless system, how resilient is it to hacking and interference?
Yeah, so the wireless system in the home, I say the Zigbee network is resilient. I'm sure if someone really wanted to hack it, they may be able to, but it's highly resilient, is what I would say. Is that it's very difficult to get into that individual mesh network. It's a bit like, I don't know if anyone's used Sonos sound systems, but they use a Zigbee mesh network as well, as do the majority of what I'd call bespoke home automation systems. They use Zigbee mesh networks, and they are very difficult to hack into when they're not set up and handshaking the system that they're on. So all I can say to answer that is they are extremely resilient. Are there ways in? Possibly, but it's not a problem we come up against, put it that way.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. And the last question, please.
Okay, heating question this time. So with heating, is this based on electric only? How the gas boiler, or have the gas boiler manufacturers been consulted with gas safe implications?
Okay, so Matt, if you want me to just cover this, and maybe you fill in any gaps, but no, the heating, it can be electric, so it could be electric underfloor or electric towel rails, but where it really comes into its own is with wet systems, so underfloor heating, where you have manifolds that need controlling, and typically on a wet system, you've got a requirement to have a manifold open, a valve open when you call for heat, with a time delay before you then open a valve or pump to pump water around, because those manifolds take a while to open. So we can control all of those aspects of a wet underfloor as well. And I'm not sure with regard to the gas boiler manufacturers. I mean, we can pretty much work with any form of heat source, whether it be a air sourced environment, air source heat pump, or whether it be a gas boiler or whatever. We're agnostic to that, because all we're really doing is providing a means to cool for heat, and then the cool for heat would be a traditional, fire up the boiler. So I don't think there are any gas safe implications that I'm aware of, because we're not really changing anything at that end of the heating supply chain, as it were. Maybe Lee, is that answering you there, or did you have something else in mind with regard to the gas safe element?
He's typing. Let's wait a bit. He replied here, Chris.
Yeah, so so really the controller, when you say fitted to the boiler, all we're doing is really calling for heat in the same way as any controller would. It's just a switch essentially at the end of the line that says turn on or turn off. So we're not actually changing any of the control elements of the boiler. It's just then the wire from the boiler is controlled through one of our actuators. So it's not changing anything on that side.
Okay. So guys, thank you very much. I think all questions have been replied. Let me just remember, let me publish it. The Votima Academy link, it's in the big screen. So if someone got late for the session, or if you want to revisit and access again this presentation, the recorded presentation, and the material presented by Matt and Chris will be available on Votima Academy until the end of the day, until the end of the day today. Okay, and the Electrical Apprentice YouTube channel as well. So this is like the link where you can find some previous sessions as well, and this session will be there as well until the end of the day. Okay, so let me come back to our cameras. So I'd like to thank you again, Chris and Matt, and you guys. Would like to leave any comment before we end the session, please?
No, just thank you for organising it, and thank you for everyone who attended. It's been a good opportunity for us to talk about a subject that's close to our hearts. So thank you.
Yeah, I just echo Chris's comments there. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd like to thank you, everyone, as well. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the questions. Good interaction as well. And stay tuned for our next communications and the next webinar sessions as well. Okay, thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Cheers. Bye-bye.